Hey you, I'm the Queen of Shade. Welcome to the interview. Don't forget to comment, like, subscribe, and hit my Cash App to support your favorite content creator. Now let's get to the interview. Mwah.
Queen of Shade. Let me tell you something. You're a bougie bitch and your mama is too. Said you're a bougie bitch and your mama is too. You're a bougie bitch and your mama is too. Said you're a bougie bitch and your mama is too.
Salutations, Stufos. This is your fabulous leader, the Queen of Shade, coming to you with another special presentation, moving full speed ahead, getting to know some of the most amazing people I have ever encountered in the world and bringing them to you so that we can get to know them together. Today's guest is no different. I have someone that you need to meet, someone new to me, so that makes it fun because then we get to know them together. So before I introduce them, let's do a little bit of research. You know how I like that. Okay. Let's see, where did it go? Okay. Commissioner Antonio Mons has more than 25 years of executive leadership experience in both the nonprofit and profit sector, from startups to mature organizations with multi-million-dollar budgets, and marketing to community and economic development. He developed and administered contracted programs from the U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, HUD, State of California, and City and County of Los Angeles in the areas of healthy homes, HIV prevention, transportation, tobacco control, and workforce development. Further, he has 2 decades of community-based experience and has owned and operated a personnel placement company, a personal concierge service, a psychotherapy and coaching practice, and a digital technology enterprise, providing on-the-job training and development for transitional aged youth. Antonio is the Chief Operating Officer at Skid Row Housing Trust, a permanent supportive housing development and management entity that supports people whom have experienced homelessness, prolonged extreme poverty, poor health, disabilities, mental illness and or addiction, in living safe, stable, driven wellness lives. Antonio holds a master's in community and clinical psychology from Antioch University and a bachelor's in telecommunications with a business minor from Michigan State University. He is a former member of the California Association of Marriage and Family Therapists, that's CAMFT, and served for 5 years on UCLA's Institutional Review Board for the Protection of Human Subjects. He is registered with no party preference. Now, after such an extensive resume, how I have come to know him is that he is also one of 4 panelists on a news show on Fox Soul called the house. Ladies and gentlemen, please help me welcome Mr. Antonio Lemons.
Thank you.
Hi. Yeah, I do. Listen, I do it well. I do it well.
I love it.
Listen, when I turn around and I have royalty before me, Commissioner, I behave. I behave. Cross my legs and I behave. So, how are you today?
You can show out a little bit too. It's okay. I'm fine.
Good. I'm glad. I'm glad. Are we catching you at home today?
You are. I actually popped in. And I know we had this on the calendar, and as you were reading my resume, I was thinking to myself, my husband and I just launched a new business yesterday. We closed escrow, and so we was at the shop, and I came over to do. So yes, you're catching me at home in Rancho Mirage.
Wow. You know what I love? I love that you have a very active lifestyle. You do a lot of things. I can appreciate that. I can appreciate an active mind.
Thank you. You know what? A lot of my contemporaries are focused on retirement. I was just at dinner with a couple about a week ago, and they were talking about retirement. I was like, I said, I don't even have that mindset. I mean, I'm not against that. Of course, I know the sort of American dream is what it is, and retirement is sort of the sunset of the American dream. But I've never felt that way. I've never looked at my life that way. And I'm still launching new projects and doing new things all the time. And I think I'll do that till the last breath.
I agree with you. I had a rather late start to my career too. I turned 40 in September, and I have no intentions of ever stop. Listen, they're gonna pry the microphone out of the grave. My hand gonna be sticking up out the soil with that microphone, okay? I'm not giving that microphone up. No. So that's really good. And like you said, to stay active and to stay motivated and to be such a pillar in your community. That's something. That is something. So I want to start right there. I want to go to, so how did you get mixed up with this new Fox Soul show, The House? How did that happen?
Well, so I got reached out to by the showrunner.
Uh-huh.
And I was a couple years ago now. I mean, we're fortunate to be in our second season, midway through our second season. It's been very exciting. And it's like many of the things that have happened in my life and career. I tell people all the time that I launch my rockets of desire and I attract things to me.
Yeah.
So I wasn't someone looking to be a host on a television show. That wasn't something that I was looking directly to do, but I did want to do high impact things. So that's where my mind is. I only want to do things where I feel like I'm having a positive impact and a high positive impact at that. So when the showrunner reached out to me and they were rounding out the panel, he basically had extended an invitation to me to be a part of the panel. And I asked him, about the show and like, why me? And he said that, first of all, it was a LGBTQIA plus show targeting African Americans specifically, and the panel would be African American. And they wanted Black people on the panel, a diverse Black panel. And he felt like the life I live made me a good resource, really being someone that's committed to the community, operating both in the nonprofit as well as corporate space, being a former therapist, like just the things I've done in my life, he felt would be good foundation for someone to sit on the panel. And he said, you're just a regular guy who happens to be gay. I'm also a father of two, and I'm married. So he said, you're just an interesting kind of character.
You know what's so funny too? I don't think he told everything I don't think he let his whole hand show. And I'm gonna just say it like this, because I think you're also there with all of that psychoanalytical ability to make sure the heads of everybody else is okay. I'm gonna just say it. He's there like, okay, you're there in case we get into some kind of mental problem with the rest of these people, and that's so fun. I mean, how would you describe the show? Because I've seen that it's already running and you guys are doing it and the whole panel is busy. So what are your thoughts on the show so far? How are you liking it?
I'm loving it. One of the things I said at the close of season one to the showrunner and executive producer, Kirk Jones, I thanked him for being in integrity, because what he pitched is what I feel we delivered.
Yeah.
And, you know, I've been in Los Angeles and in and around Hollywood folks for a very long time. And I'm also a writer. So I know that what you create and come up with as a show idea, what ends up on the screen might look very different. And that was a concern, particularly with the popularity of reality television.
Yeah.
I was very much concerned that this could potentially turn into something that could be a disaster. And I didn't want to be associated with something like that. So I was just really grateful that what he pitched to me and the integrity that he held in keeping the show on track, we're really there to, the way I see it is funny because there's 4 of us, right? There's 4 panelists. And if you ask any one of us, I think we have a slightly different nuanced perspective as to what the show means to us. So for me personally, I think it's an incredible opportunity to let the viewer get access to an exchange that is often they're not privy to.
Yeah.
And I say this all the time, that people know gay people, but they know LGBTQIA plus people as a matter of fact. They know it from that perspective, but to really know us, to really understand us, to really embrace us in our full humanity, often that's negotiated away in order to have relationships with folk. So I think that this show gives people an opportunity to kind of peer into and see that we're dealing with the same exact issues. We're concerned about the same things. Our voices are important and necessary. And that's the feedback that I know I personally have gotten from fans and folks who are watching the show, what they say hands down is, this show is educational.
Yeah. And
that makes me feel good, because it isn't that we're just entertaining, but we also are letting them, and I'll just say one other little thing that I know I can get a little long with, is I'm gonna try to contain myself.
No, please do not censor yourself. Please keep going. I'm learning.
So there's one of the things that I think is really indicative, and what I loved about the show is the reaction of the crew.
Yeah.
And I remember season 1, after every break, they would rush to our dressing room with tons of questions, and they were asking us about this, and you guys said that, and what does that mean, and what is a bear, and what is an otter?
Interesting.
And I think they typify what I think a lot of the viewers have, that same experience, like, oh my God, I'm just being fed, and I'm taking it in, and in a positive way.
Yeah, I can appreciate that too, because, as a person myself who has 15 years under his belt of, because I'm a cross-dresser, not, transgendered female. And it's so crazy that in our world we have to identify, but I'm cross-dresser, trans illusionist. So, I've had 15 years of therapy to deal with my bipolar 1, my PTSD, my acute anxiety, and it's going very well for me as well. So what I love is that, like you said, very educational. They get to learn about us and all the things that affect us, especially homelessness, because I was homeless like most of my early 20s. My family was extremely religious. So with them being extremely religious, I was cast out on the street. And I was very angry with my family, because what people don't understand is they go, oh, well, you'll survive. And me, I had no tools. So that meant if my family was putting me out, they were sending me to my death. Because how was I supposed to survive not being, not having the tools that I needed to actually make a go of it? So I love that, the world now, the platform is in America, but the world now is going to have an opportunity to hear what we go through from a place of triumph, if you understand.
Absolutely.
Not from a place of, I'm still going through the trenches, I'm still this, I'm still that. Like, no, I love that the show is presenting healing. That's number 1 for me. Healing, and also saying that this is available, because a lot of gays, a lot of lesbians, they don't talk about these issues. I encounter this in my work too as a mentor, because I talk about my 15 years. I talk about the years before 15, because I'm turning 40 in September. So I've got a long life lived. And I, in the 80s, and my mother on drugs and my father mentally ill and on drugs. So I've got a lot of, like you said, there's a lot of meat. And I honestly believe that I too am having the level of success that I'm having because I'm not wounded anymore.
Yes.
Because
No
I can talk about these things.
Absolutely.
Yes, because these things, they now get to see, because what people are looking for is they're dealing with it, but they're looking for a ray of hope. They're looking for it on the other side. What am I going to look like when I get it together?
Mm-hmm.
And I believe that this show is definitely presenting that. So, yes, you are one of 4 panelists. I saw that, like, shout out to Imani Van Zap. I saw her and Bevy, I just saw Bevy Smith and all the people that you bring on. And what I love is that, especially about you, get this, it's so crazy. Shout out to Thornell, because he told me, he said, now listen here, Queen, when you get Antonio on your show, he says it like he means it. He's going to say what comes to his mind. I said, well, we love that. Like, we love that. But really, I'm loving the idea of, I can sit and say this and I can back it up. Mm-hmm. That's what this show is offering. And I really am excited to watch. I've kind of been busy building my own empire. So, but I'm going to get into the show, because now that I'm starting to talk to the panelists, I'm enjoying that. Oh, this is informative. No, I don't see this show, within the scope of reality TV. I also agree. This doesn't need to go left. This needs to stay right where it is, and it needs to just go higher, and it just needs to be syndicated, and it needs to be, that way, and streamed, so that people—
Speak it.
Yes, I'm speaking it, so that people can learn, because I truly believe that now, in this time, in the dispensation of time where we are in our world seems like it's falling apart, but our world is actually in the middle of a reset. Mm-hmm. And in the middle of this reset, we need to be visible. It's kind of like, we deal, I'm sure we deal with this all the time, the African-American issue, we deal with that. But now it's no longer just the African-American issue. It's the LGBTQIAP+ condition. And then there's the mental health condition. Like, there's so much coming out right now, because people are tired of literally holding it all inside.
Yeah.
Tired of holding it all inside. So can you tell me, I already surmised, but I want to hear from you, your role when, like you said, you were hired to do a specific job. When you have a guest there, and that guest starts to open up about their life and about what they've experienced, positively and negatively, what is your duty?
Well, my duty, first and foremost, is to hold space, and that's always. I don't sit, from my perspective, on the panel as a therapist. And I always have to make that distinction.
Right.
I am a former therapist. Mm-hmm. I don't practice clinically any longer. I practiced for 7.5 years clinically. Mm-hmm. And then I transitioned into more of a coaching practice, specifically a coaching practice, for a number of reasons. Now, I'm a trained therapist, so some of those things are ingrained in me, and it's just how I move in the world, right? Yeah. But I'm very careful to be very clear that I'm not sitting in that chair as a therapist, no more than when my husband accuses me of psychoanalyzing him. It's like, no, I'm not. I'm just being your husband. I'm checking you.
Right. Right. I'm checking you, boo.
Exactly. But what I think my role is to hold space, and I take that very seriously. One of the things that made me a very good therapist, there's something that's called transference and countertransference in therapy. And I'm sure with your experience with therapists, you understand what that is. But for those watching, it is the therapist's responsibility to hold a space where they're not putting their lives, their ideas, their perspective, or over-identifying with you as the client in ways that are unhealthy. Right. And that is something that when we are trained as therapists, that's ingrained in us. All therapists don't do that well, which is why you have situations where you have therapists having sexual relationships with clients and so on and so forth. And we've heard those horror stories. Right. But that's someone who wasn't able to hold boundaries and someone who got over enmeshed in the relationship with the client.
Right.
So one of the things as a therapist I was very good at is strong boundaries.
Mhm.
And another thing as a therapist that I was very good at is I can hold space for ideas that are counter to my own very comfortably.
Okay.
I am not filtering what I hear through how I experience the world.
Yes.
How you experience the world is not part and parcel to how I experience it. I get to have no judgment about how you experience the world. So when guests come and share their stories, I can hold space for that. I'm not reacting to them from the space of, oh, that's not how the world works, or that's not how it should be.
Right.
There's no shoulds and supposed tos.
Yeah.
There just are,
That's
right?
hard.
And so I love being able, I think that everyone can't do that. And
Mhm.
I think some of the angst that we feel in society is from people's inability to do that.
Yes.
You mentioned a moment ago about your family casting you out and being very religious. I
Yeah.
think that's a very good example. My grandmother, who she's passed on, she'd be over 100 now,
Yeah.
but she's I call her my favorite girl.
Yeah.
And the reason I say that is because my grandmother was very, very religious also.
Mm.
But my grandmother was able to always hold space for me.
Yeah.
So her beliefs and her ideas and what Jesus said and what her Christian folks were saying and what the Catholic Church was saying,
Yeah.
she did not put any of that on me. She held that over there. But me, I'm her grandson. I tell you something she always said to me, and I share this almost in every interview
Mhm.
when I'm interviewed. She used to always say to me, like, let's say I had done something when I was growing up.
Yes.
And she would share her perspective. And she would say, grandmother doesn't know everything. Take what you can use and leave the rest.
Wow.
Always. And so she gave me voice from a very early age. She put my own critical thinking to the test always because she shared information. But she didn't say, you're supposed to do this, you're supposed to be this, you're supposed to be that. When I told her I wanted to quit catechism classes,
Yeah.
she said, if that doesn't work for you, baby, then quit catechism classes.
Wow. But
So
you know
I
what?
know that
Yeah,
everybody doesn't get to have that experience.
exactly.
I share it because I also want people to know that every experience is not a negative experience. And I want people to know too that there are people out there who can have vastly different core beliefs, but they can still share space. They can still hold space for others. And I think when one can say, this is what I believe, and not be arrogant and not feel like because they believe a certain way that that's how the world is supposed to, or every person is supposed to experience it the same way, then we can be harmonious with each other in a very different way. So that's what I think my role is. I have vastly different views from many of my co-hosts
Mhm.
on the show, but I'm able, and sometimes they say something I think is crazy. Now, I'm not going to say that I don't think something's crazy,
Right.
but what I'm saying is they have a right to say it.
Yeah.
And I'll just say, you have a right to that crazy, but,
But it's sure crazy. But
but
it's
it's
sure
your
crazy.
crazy.
Right. But
Exactly. So that's what I think my role is.
but you know what I love is I'm hearing that, and this is something that, oh my God. Okay. I'm so empathic. It's so crazy. What I'm hearing and what I'm getting is the fact that you get to hold space as a human being.
Yes, absolutely.
And then a human being that just so happens to be a member of the
Yes.
LGBTQIAP plus community. Like this is, okay, this is a human right that we have been denied up until this point,
Yes.
to simply hold space as a human being
Yes.
and talk and chat on a public syndicated world streaming platform.
Yes.
So I'm really like, my brain is starting to tingle because it's just like, even as Thornell said to me, I'm starting to see the potentiality of this show. I'm starting to see how large this show can be and how effective and how powerful it can be, not only as a tool to us, but to every other community watching, to watch us just be human, just
Yes.
human. And I think also I'm going to say this. I think also it's going to kind of put a kibosh on all of that reality fighting
Mm,
that we
that
see
would be lovely.
between us that they love so much on the other networks. It's like,
Mhm.
no, let us sit here. And it's kind of funny because I'm not religious, but I use these because it just makes sense. It's a come together and let us reason moment.
Yes,
And I really
I think so.
appreciate, yeah, I really appreciate that. My God. So what season are you guys in? Because I'm just finding out about this.
We're halfway through season 2.
Okay.
So
So you
I
have,
think we just completed, first season was 11 episodes,
yeah.
and we just completed episode 6. So we've 17 episodes in. We have 7 left for this season. We have 13 episodes.
Ooh,
And, if all goes well, we'll be greenlit for season 3.
it's gonna go well.
You know,
I'm a speaker. It's
yeah,
gonna go well because
there we
my
go.
God, like what you're offering is it's kind of funny. Like with me, like I've always been an entertainer. I've been a natural entertainer all my life, but it took me living the type of life that I lived to actually get the healing part. And
Mm,
now I'm able to put that. I put that in my videos. I put that in my music. There's always that. Even when I'm speaking, I put that healing into everything I do. It's so empowering. It's so
mhm.
empowering. I couldn't see anyone not truly understanding this. And I'm going to say this, just like Noah's Ark, the show with Daryl Stevens and Jensen Atwood and all of them revolutionized the world, not just our
Mhm.
community. This too has the potential to revolutionize the world because people are going to tune in to human beings having conversations.
Yes,
And
over good
it's
food
human,
too.
yeah, with great food too. Human beings that just so happen to
Correct.
be of the community. And that,
Yes.
you know what it is? It's representation. We
Yes.
don't have too much of that. It's
Yeah.
representation. It's absolutely brilliant. So my God, my kudos to you. Kudos to the executive producers, the writers,
Yeah.
your other panelists, because it's just
Yeah.
like, it's so amazing. So now let me switch gears a little bit because I always start this way, but I wanted to start with the show because I was learning about it. It was new, and
Sure.
I had people talking to me about it, and some of my celebrity friends, and they're like, "Listen, you got to watch this show. This show is great." So you're getting great reviews, and I can tell you that people are listening, people are watching, people are loving, not liking, loving the experience of the show. So I want to know, like you said, your grandmother. Where did you grow up? Where were you born? Where'd you grow up?
Sure. So I was born in Michigan. I grew
Okay.
up in the Detroit area,
Okay.
specifically Highland Park.
Okay. Wow. Okay. So then you started, where'd you go to college?
I went to Michigan State University
Mm-hmm.
and I did my undergraduate there.
Mm-hmm.
And so what's interesting about that, I had applied to schools here in Southern California. I came here. So my story kind of begins at the age of 15. I think the story that launched the Antonio that you get to meet today. My
Yeah.
story, of course, starts way before 15,
Yes.
15. Those formative years, I was fortunate, like I said, to have I'm the first of my generation. So I was the firstborn grandson. We live in a patriarchal society.
Yeah.
So I was the firstborn grandson. So
Yeah.
I got a lot of love and just because accolades, just for being a boy.
Yes.
You know how that goes. But I
Yes.
think that makes a difference oftentimes in how the world responds to you if they happen to sync up. So while one could feel the expectations that was bestowed upon me because of my birth order and all of that stuff
Yeah.
as overwhelming, and it just happened to work for me. So
Yeah.
I was a good student, and I was very verbose, and I had opinions, and
Yes.
they entertained them.
Yes.
And at 12, because always ask that question when you think back when you were young, what? So at 12 years old, I had this real betrayal of a friendship.
Yeah.
And in retrospect, I see it was around gender and identity and sexual orientation. At the time, I didn't, but I was a different boy.
Right.
And my peers got certain flack for
Mhm.
being associated with me.
Yeah.
And there came a time when I was 12 years old where two really important friends of mine chose to no longer associate with me for reasons that I didn't even fully understand. But I
Right.
knew that they were choosing something else.
Mm-hmm.
And so what that did for me is it helped me understand that this is my life, this is my road, and I may have to journey it alone.
Yeah.
And that's where I landed. I mean, other people land in different places. That just happens to be where I landed.
Mhm.
And so at a very early age, I'm not a joiner
Yeah.
in terms of I don't need to be a part of the group or the clique. Antonio Rose and his own, I am friends with and move in and out of all of these different groups.
Yeah.
But I don't align myself. I don't group think. I have my own way I see the world, and I feel very comfortable moving in the world. That's that 12-year-old kid who said, this is how you're going to have to do it.
Yes.
So I still move like that. At 15, I came to California. So I was being the oldest and all that. So I had been driving since I was 14, and no one really knew I didn't have a driver's license because, you know, my mother did, but my mother was very open, and I'm driving her car, whipping around town. And so my great uncle, my grandmother's brother, all he knew is that I would drive over there. So I went to a private boys academy, and we got out of school earlier than the public schools. We got out in May.
Okay.
So I was out of school, and he said, well, he was driving out to California. Would I like to help him drive out here to bring his daughter this car he had just bought her? And I said, sure, absolutely. So I helped him drive out. Again, he had no idea I didn't have a license. I didn't bother to tell him. So we drive.
Typical boy.
We drive out here from Michigan, and during that time, he came and left, right? So I was 15. I would have been going into my freshman year in high school.
Yeah.
I had this glorious time because his daughter, who's just a few years older than me, she was in her early 20s. When he left, she was dating this guy. So she would be at her boyfriend's, and to keep me quiet, I had keys to her brand new car. So I was like this 15-year-old with a car, his own apartment in California, in Hollywood. Yeah. Can you imagine the
Yes,
impact?
I can.
You feel me?
Yes.
So I went up to Hollywood High School to enroll myself.
Oh my
God. I said, I'm going to go to high school here. And I called my mother. I said, well, I'm not coming back. Oh. And she said, oh, yes, you are. And I was like, oh, no, I've already enrolled in school. She's like, you don't just get to. She said, Antonio, don't make me come get you. So needless to say, I went back. The day before school started, we started in August. She called me and told me your ticket's there. You know, this was back with travel agents. Go pick it up, be on the plane. So I did, but I vowed that I'd be back.
Yes.
And so I was going to go to college here. That's where it kind of got me on that train of thought. Yeah. But my mother, unfortunately, got really ill in my junior year, going into my senior year of high school. Got this rare muscle disease. And my mother is, I mean, she's a very glamorous woman. She was a model. Yeah. It was very interesting growing up with her as a mother. But she went from that to being unable to walk and almost unrecognizable because of the medications they had her on, et cetera. So I decided to go to school in Michigan. And I went to Michigan State University for my freshman year. My mother fully recovered. She won Miss Beautiful Detroit that year. She won Miss Super Bowl that year. So here I was in Michigan. She was fully recovered. But the message there for me is one of strength.
Yes.
You know, I'll get to that in a moment when I first moved to LA and have lived through the AIDS epidemic. Yeah. But a lot of that ties back to the courage and strength that I saw in my mother come from her deathbed to that kind of triumph, right? But once I had gotten to Michigan State, I made friends, and I decided that I would do my undergraduate career there. And then when I finished, I'd moved to California. So when I finished my undergraduate degree in June, I moved here in July. Yeah. And I've been in Southern California ever since.
Wow. You know, I got the same thing, you know, and people don't understand this. I'm my grandmother's firstborn. I'm my mother's firstborn as well. They don't understand, yes, that it just because it's a boy, it's an amazing thing. But I love that what I heard and what I saw in your narration, your story, your narrative was that, my God, you come from, you know, a clan that just doesn't give up. Like what is defeat? Like we don't know that here. You know, that's not a part of our vocabulary. We, you know, can't. It's like when you hear them say can't, it's not in our vocabulary.
Mhm.
only what we do. And that's so amazing. Like that is utterly amazing. And that's why I kind of went that way, because I'm hearing all of these great things, and they're true and they're amazing. So it just made me kind of, just for a second, think, well, how was the mentality as he was growing up? But as you can see, you're very much, I'm not going to say an overachiever. I'm going to say an achiever.
Mhm.
I'm going to say that you're driven. I'm going to say that you're passionate. And I'm so glad that, I get this opportunity to speak with you, because literally I like, it's your electricity and your vibes are like literally radiating off of you. And I believe in energy, and I'm just soaking them up. I'm just soaking them up, because it's just good to be around that kind of energy. And that's my next question. Based on what I just said, based on what you've just said, how have you always maintained such a positive light? Because you were just getting ready to say, AIDS epidemic and things like that. How, through all of those things, how did you always remain positive? Like, listen, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna do, we're gonna come through this, it's gonna be great, it's gonna be amazing, I'm gonna go on. How did you, like, what did that look like?
So this is interesting. Thank you for that question. Rarely do I get that question. I think in my life I might have been asked a similar question twice.
Mm,
I grew up with a assassination fear
mm, mm,
that I could never put my finger on.
mm,
And what I believe is I was not youth, I was a young child when Martin Luther King was assassinated,
yes,
when JFK was assassinated, when Robert FK was assassinated, and the advent of media.
yeah,
And I really believe that I was imprinted by those media images and probably people talking about it because I was a little kid, right?
yes,
But somewhere I got the idea, and I unpacked this years later, probably in my 30s.
yes,
Um, what I the message I got was that those that change the world will be destroyed.
yeah.
If you're a pioneer, if you're transformative, you will be destroyed.
Mhm.
But I also was driven internally that I knew that I came to this planet to do impactful things. So I've always had to negotiate that with myself, that I do the things that I do at the risk of being destroyed.
Yes.
And it was in working with one of my coaches, personal coaches, where we were sorting through this assassination fear. And he said, how about if you frame this? Because I was looking back in my life where I either stopped short of something or I
Mhm.
didn't push something to the next level because I knew that assassination fear was playing in the background, right? And so when her and I processed this, she said something to me that sticks to this day. And she said, what if you looked at it as waking up every day doing something worth being murdered, assassinated for? And
More.
I said, ding, that's it.
Yeah.
That's me. That's who I am. So it isn't the avoidance,
Mhm.
it's to make sure,
Mhm.
it's to make sure that each day I'm doing enough to be murdered for. So I so while I don't get up and say that in the mirror every morning, in the back of my mind, though, I think that is where my drive and my passion is. I want to have come here and done something worth being assassinated over.
Yeah. You know what's so crazy? Up until now, because I've had extensive therapy and I'm a talker. I'm a talker. Like, I don't need to get to know my therapist. I'm not there to know my therapist. I'm there to know me. So, like,
Uh,
I can change therapists 5, 6, 7 times. And I'm looking at them like, okay, this is where we left off. And I lay down and we could continue. And they looking at me like, you didn't even, you didn't even like give me that angst. I don't know you. I'm like, it's not because I'm not here to do that. I'm here to know me. So
right.
I've never heard it placed like that. But I also too just unpacked that I've had that fear of being a martyr, fear of being
Mm.
a martyr. But at the same time, even with that fear, it's like push that fear aside and say, I'm going to do something like this viral saying that's going around every day that says, oh, I'm going to make y'all sick of me. You're about to be sick of me, like live like that. Because this was the thing, like I've had people do things to me, even in my career, 15 years of dealing with highly weird insiders and their feeling threatened and being insecure. And that was kind of why I moved away and did my own thing. But it was like, I've heard people say to me, you want your haters to be mad with you, make them mad, make them upset, do it. Because me, it was always like, oh, I don't want to make them upset, because then they'll more fire will come my way. And then people in my life would be like, you can take that fire. You're a phoenix. You're a bird on fire. Fire on fire is not going to do nothing to you. Put that fire out there. Come on. And when you said that, I was definitely able to relate. And I'm sure everyone watching will also be able to relate that, instead of living, we've all learned this anyway, living in fear doesn't get you anything. Nothing at all. So we have to live from a place where, and you've learned this and I've learned this because we you did it, I've had it, the therapy. You have to take the responsibility, even of the emotion, even of it, even the trauma. You have to take the responsibility, because if you don't take the responsibility and the ownership, you can't change it. It'll always be somebody else's fault. It'll always be somebody else's narrative. It'll always be somebody controlling you. So I thank you very much for that, because it just reminded me like, bitch, come on, stay out front, do this.
Can I add a little something to that?
Please do.
I absolutely agree with you. And that personal responsibility for me is huge. That's always the first place I look with any situation is, what is my role? What is my part? What is my learning? What is my lesson? Because this was for me.
Yes.
It was all for me.
I get it.
And so what I wanted to add to that is oftentimes, kind of hearkening back a little bit to my resume that you read earlier and how people see me in the world, et cetera.
Yes.
They often also think that, and I'm going to share a little story with you about this.
You've got time, sweetheart.
Okay.
You've got time.
So there was this organization, and I'm not going to name the organization, but it was an organization that wants to help LGBT youth.
Yes.
And they had a speakers bureau. And I remember being so excited of wanting to be a part of the speakers bureau. And I applied to be a part of the speakers bureau and was rejected. And I reached out to them. I wanted to understand why. And they told me, they said, you don't have a victim story. You don't have the trauma story.
Wow.
So you really need, we want people to be able to see the arc. When we talk to you, life just works. And I said, well, why don't we want people to see that too? And it isn't that I don't go through things. And I think that's the other thing. My life works, but it's what we were just talking about. Is when things happen, I don't wallow in victimhood. I don't make it about what somebody else did and that. And that was another thing that my grandmother, back to my grandmother, my favorite girl, when I would grow up, when you come home and something happened, and you go, Tommy did. You never let someone else's behavior dictate yours. If whatever you did, if Tommy did this and you did that in reaction to Tommy, you got to own what you did. Period. So I'm not interested in discussing Tommy. I'm interested in discussing, they called me Tony.
Yes.
So let's talk about your choice. And if you did something out of pocket, she probably didn't say out of pocket, but if you did something out of pocket, you must be responsible for that. You don't get to say, oh, I did this because Tommy did X. And so I grew up that way, and I own, sometimes I have to get out of pocket. And I own being out of pocket. I don't go, oh, well, you provoked me, or you pushed me, or you said this, or you said that. And so a little story with that is there was this security guard that I used to go to this particular 7-Eleven in Hollywood every morning and get coffee. And there was a security guard there who I formed an opinion about through observation. He was always flirting with the girls. And I thought, not just flirting, but I thought just being crass and kind of inappropriate. But I didn't say anything to him about that. But I had formed this opinion about him. And one day I was sitting in front of the 7-Eleven on the phone. And they had a time limit as to how long you could be in that parking space. And so he kept interrupting my phone conversation, a phone conversation that was really important to me. And I thought it was an important phone conversation. He kept interrupting me. And so I got very angry with him and told him to quit interrupting me and that I was on an important conversation and he was trying to do his job. Well, we ended up in a shouting match. I'm talking, cussing each other out. I mean, I'm talking I done got out the car, went in 7-Eleven. I'm in the back making my coffee. He's at the front of 7-Eleven screaming at me. I'm screaming at him from the back of 7-Eleven. And it is just ignorant and ugly, right? So I paid for my car. Oh, I done called him, talked about his behavior with the women, all the stuff that I had thought about him. I told him.
You gotta
So
be an Aries. We'll get to that. You gotta be an Aries.
I'm an Aquarian.
Oh,
Actually.
not even worse.
So I get my coffee and I get in the car. And this is what, it's funny you said my astrological sign. So if anyone knows Aquarians, we're humanitarian at the core. I got in the car and as I was driving home, that exchange haunted me.
Oh, yes.
I got home and I told my partner what had happened.
Yes.
And I said, I have to go back and make that right.
Mm.
And I got in my car. It's probably about a 15-20 minute drive.
Yes.
I just couldn't. It was in my spirit. And I went back and his name was Anthony. And I told Anthony that I came back and I wanted to apologize for my behavior. Because no matter what he said or did, how I comported myself was inappropriate. And I should have never spoken to him that way. He literally started crying. Like tears was rolling down his face. He stepped in and grabbed me and hugged me and thanked me for the apology. He offered an apology in return. And I thought as two Black men in that moment, the grace that we showed one another was so important. And I could have stayed in some self-righteous position about what had transpired, but it wasn't about that. What transpired was an opportunity for me to really look at who am I in the world? Who do I want to be in the world? How am I moving in the world? And not just take responsibility, but take action as well. And so I share that story because it's a standout moment for me. And then, of course, Anthony and I became fast friends. And you better believe that my car if I pulled up at 7, they were watching my car. And he's no longer working there now. He, has moved on to other things. But I think of him fondly whenever I pass that particular 7-Eleven.
That story is amazing because it's like you said, you get to right a wrong. I took this forum a long time ago. It's called the Landmark Forum. I'm from Philadelphia.
Me too.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So you're aware of the Landmark Forum. Mm-hmm. So, and in that forum, they taught me a lot of things. But what they also, one of the things that they taught me was that, listen, if it is a mistake, if it is an error, just clean up your own shit. Mm-hmm. Just clean it up. Don't leave it for someone else to possibly walk in it, step in it, or have to clean it up behind you. Yep. And that's kind of how I adopt my career. Like everything that goes on in my life, I told you first. I told you first. And then you didn't just get, I told you first. You then get, I told you, and this is what I did to counteract that situation or that problem. Like, and get this, I didn't get that a lot from my family. My family was from the inner city of projects. My grandmother was the reason why I'm sitting here so poised now is my grandmother became a teacher. She got her master's degree. And then, I kind of it was a struggle in the family because resources were limited. Mm-hmm. So they were kind of looking for the best horse in the race. And I was still too young. And I think that saved me because I came to my grandmother at a time when they had all been gone. They were all grown. So it was like, It was like, Grandma, I'm learning about my mental illness. I need a place to stay. I need therapy. I need this and that. And she signed on for that. But then she was able to give me a very large 6-figure check that she had saved 40 years for her retirement. And she bestowed that upon me, that I got to pay her back. But to do what I'm doing, to establish myself, to not have to go and be utilized or be misunderstood, or, you know, all of those things. That's why I never went to Hollywood. Never needed to play the game, because Grandma was like, if you do it from here in Philadelphia, everybody gonna come to you if it's good. And that's what she kept saying to me, if it's good. So how do you make it good? You keep on working at it. And I've given this thing 20 years, but this 6 years, and then this platform right here, just since November. So I got it, you know, thank you. I'm moving by leaps and by bounds. But what I love is that, like what you said, I'm a Libra. So, you know, I'm also harmony and humanitarian. Fix it. Like it's so funny because some people can tell lies. I just prefer to tell my truth before you know it, you know, like before you do, you know, like and I can't hurt people. And that's the thing, even with what I do, I'm blessed that I don't work any other job. I have other things that I want to do, but you know, one thing at a time. But I even when I go into stores, I remember working retail. I remember what it was like to have to be medically withdrawn from college to where I could not finish my biology degree in pre-veterinary medicine. And me coming from the, you know, from the hood, it was like, how are you going to do this? But I managed to work all through high school, get accepted to 4 colleges for it. And then I find out, oh, you're bipolar, you got to come out of here. But what my grandmother taught me was, you are the phoenix. You have resiliency. You will emerge, you will arise. And I've burst into flames many times in my life. But this is my last time. I'm on fire now. I'm keeping this one. I don't want to burst no more. Like, not another time. This is it. I'm living this life. I'm not coming back. But I just love, and I thank you for sharing that with me, because like you said, the beauty of that was that you guys were able to make amends. But get this, that the people watching, they got to see the amends. And then they got to walk away with the, wow, they made up and they empowered each other. And, you know, because everybody thinks when they see us that they understand, you know, and I mean this experience. And my grandmother says to me, you walk around like you're the only Black person that these people will ever see. And I said, because sometimes, most of the time I am. I am. So I want to be on my best behavior. Now, mind you, people have, I own the trademark, the Queen of Shade. I didn't get that because I was Glenda the Good Witch. Right? I didn't get it because of that. So I have that and I earned that. And yes, but as I grew, this platform became so much more of a healing space, and the shade became more of a tree that bears fruit and provides wood and shelter to people that need it. And, you know, it's just so lovely when you can grow.
Absolutely.
And I'm backing back around. I'm coming back around full circle to the show, the house. It's so, and I love the name too, because you got to think about it. So many people live all kinds of different ways and experience so many different things within their house.
Absolutely.
That's usually where the first damage or the first love occurs. So they get to come, you know, figuratively to your house and your other panelists' house and have a good meal. Because, you know, people eat with their eyes now. That's why the Food Network exists. We eat with our eyes first. It's like, it's got to look good. So great food, and they get to see something that we really haven't seen since the Huxtables. And that is a black collective sitting around a table at the same time, enjoying a meal and talking. That right there. Yeah, that right there. Black folk, listen, Black folk don't get 6 o'clock. Black folk are not. They take their food and they go to the respective rooms. The fact that this is the situation where, you know, you're sitting here and we're talking and we're communicating, not with our fist, not with shouting. That is so important to see. Because you have a lot, I'm just gonna say it, you got a lot of other races that don't think we can do that. They don't believe that we have civility.
Mhm.
So, even with me, I tell them all the time, listen, you go back and you can look at all my social media. I wasn't always this. And that's okay. I own that too, because it got me here. But I'm
That's
here
right.
now, and this is how we do things now, you know? So,
Oh,
oh my God. But really, I just thank you, Mr. Lemons, for being with me today, for imparting your wisdom, your knowledge, sharing your story and experiences. And again, I want everyone to know that the house, when does it come on Fox Soul? Please plug it.
yes, absolutely. We're every Friday night, 6 p.m. Pacific time, 9 p.m. Eastern time.
Okay. Thank you so much for being with me. Now, before you go, I do this to every guest. Give me 3 words that inspire and empower you as a human being.
Okay, 3 words that inspire and empower me are integrity,
Mm-hmm.
passion,
Mm-hmm.
and witness. And when I say witness, that is to be seen, the gaze held
Yes.
without judgment.
Yes. My God. Okay. I always ask this question, but I don't know. You do too many things. You might not want everybody to find you, but tell everybody where they can find you on social media.
We
I
are
don't want
loaded.
another person to know where you are.
You're absolutely right. That's probably the hard. But they're telling me that Instagram is what I need to be doing. So no, you can find me on Instagram at antonio.le.mons.
Okay. Thank you so much, ladies and gentlemen. You have heard the vocal stylings. I do this of Mr. Antonio Mons, who is actually a commissioner. So Commissioner Mons. All right. Don't go anywhere. Say goodbye to the people, but don't go anywhere.
Goodbye, everyone. Thank you so much for having me.
My pleasure. So did you enjoy? I hope you did. Please like, comment, subscribe, share, and don't forget to cash at me at the Queen of Shade. I am your favorite content creator, right? Right. You want to see more of this content, right? Right. Cash at me. I love you. Mwah.
I've got my black stilettos